Retro.
Hi, this is Emily Swallow, the Armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we're kicking off this brand new week with a look at the Clone Wars. But before we get into that, Jay, what are our social media contacts?
All right, you want to hunt us down? We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The digital line, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down. We are now broadcasting with the Galaxy. So, as you can tell, I still got a little bit of this cold left, recording this at the same night we did the news last week. So bear with me here. I appreciate it. So we're getting into episode 21 from season 3 of the Clone Wars, which is called Padawan Lost. And this is an Ahsoka-centric story. Jay, you want to go ahead and give us the summary, please?
I always love those Ahsoka-centric stories. Here we go. On the planet Felucia, Jedi Knights Plo Koon, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano lead a three-pronged attack against the Separatists. While separated from her unit, Ahsoka is stalked, captured, and rendered unconscious by a Trandoshan hunter. When she awakes, Ahsoka finds she has been brought to the Trandoshan moon of Washaka, where she and other captives are to be hunted by the Trandoshans for sport. She soon meets stranded Jedi younglings there, and although they have lost hope and their sense of identity, Ahsoka inspires them to take the fight to the hunters. The leader of the younglings, Khalifa, dies in the aftermath of a fight after Ahsoka killed a Trandoshan hunter in self-defense. The deceased Trandoshan's father vows revenge on the Jedi.
Yeah, so again, very much an Ahsoka-centric story here, and this it's another opportunity for her to kind of guide a younger generation. We saw her do that with some of the Mandalorian stories that we talked about earlier from the season, especially with like the contaminated beverage that was going around there, and she definitely led these younglings into she was there to gather recon and stuff like that, but she kind of ended up being the mentor for them, and now she's thrust into the similar role with some Jedi younglings in this. So for someone her age and in her position as a Padawan, she's getting multiple opportunities to have an impact on yet another generation of Jedi here. What'd you think about the story overall?
Well, I think the fortune cookie really says it all. Without humility, courage is a dangerous game. And so we've definitely seen Ahsoka kind of, I don't know if I want to say necessarily battling with, but she's kind of at this crossroads of her ability versus her cockiness, I guess you could say. And Anakin even uses that word at one point when he's talking to her. And so she's got to get back to the bare bones of really kind of who she is in this episode, and use a lot of the things that she learned as a Jedi Padawan and also her intrinsic values, I think, to really go forward with what we get to see here.
Yeah. Well said. The episode guide and the trivia guide for this episode over on StarWars.com have a lot of fun things to say on this. And if you didn't know already, they spell it out plainly for you that reference in the fortune cookie to the dangerous game is basically a reference to the short story, The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell, that came back out in 1924. I know I read it like 3 or 4 times going through school. Did you read that one in high school?
No, I did not. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's essentially the basis for a lot of the story, the story archetype that where it's humans hunting humans is what it comes down to. That it's one thing to hunt an animal, it's another thing to hunt a human, where they have instincts and intelligence and this, that, and the other. And so, the protagonist of that story is invited to an island, and then it's kind of a party thing. It's been a long time since I've read it, so some of my memory is a little bit fuzzy on it. But it turns out that he's been brought to that island essentially for this Russian hunter to hunt him down. And spoiler, by the end, he turns the table on the hunter and, and wins. But think of Predator. Think of Running Man by,
Mhm.
which is, I think, a novel by Philip K. Dick that got turned into a movie twice. Most recently, like just last year. Think of a lot of those type stories where someone is brought into, be hunted, and then they have to survive, and then they turn the tables on their hunter at some point. The hunted becomes the hunter type of a thing. And so that was cool. I got my college degree in English lit, so it was like a fun little reference for me there. But this is what, at least non-canonically in the EU, the Trandoshans were known for, is that they have these big hunting contests, and you get all these points. Jagannath, I can't remember exactly what they were called, where you would, based on who you killed and how, you get more and more esteem for doing so.
Mhm.
And that's part of the reason why this one hunter went out of the way to bring in a Jedi Padawan, which is kind of funny to me that he was able to hunt down a Padawan in the middle of the war just to stun her and to bring her someplace else to hunt her. It's like you successfully hunted her already, and now you're doing this capture and release so you can hunt her again, type of a thing.
Mhm.
But this time
Mhm.
it's supposed to be permanent. But I don't know. What do you think about this whole premises and this idea?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's kinda chilling because, I
Yeah,
mean, it's hunting in and of itself is obviously laden with like you said, predator versus prey, but when you put it in these terms, and especially because these are younglings, and at one point, they even, say Khalifa says, "Well, they can't do this with masters, so they chose us." So they kind of chose the weaker of the Jedi anyways, which is kind of like, okay, well, if you really wanted a challenge, then why are you doing this? But also just because they're so young. So, but obviously these are Jedi Padawan, and we've said a bazillion times that they are prodigies in their own right. So they probably stand a better chance than, the norm. But yeah, I mean, but it's obvious that their particular culture, this is what they do. And so as chilling as it is, it's still kind of showing the grandness of the galaxy, if you will,
sure.
and what kinds of crazy things go on within some of these different warrior cultures and what is considered to be rites of passage and that type of thing. But it definitely puts it on a different, almost like Hunger Games level in some ways too.
Yeah, there's certain things that happen though here that I think it made it especially repugnant. And we'll get into that as we're talking about
Mhm.
this. I think the other thing that's key is that they go out of the way to describe the other Jedi here. So we've got three of them. We've got Khalifa, who's the human girl, and as you just said in the summary, she dies during the fight. Right after Ahsoka defeats Dar, who is the lead Trandoshan's son. She flips him over and he lands into a briar, and a spike goes through his chest and he dies. But and then Khalifa gets shot right after that, and she passes away. And then there's Jinx, who is a Twi'lek boy, and Umir, who is a Syrian boy. But they're specifically described as younglings, not Padawans in
Mhm.
this situation. And Ahsoka has got more training, and so at first, Khalifa tries to exude some sort of authority that she's got experience here. And she even like throws that in Ahsoka's face, like, isn't experience important? This, that, and the other. And there is because there's like not it wasn't just Ahsoka that was brought to this island at the time. There was other random people. And I'm like, why did you pick them?
Mhm.
They weren't Jedi in this situation. And right after they get dropped off, like unsummarily like dumped out of the bottom of the ship, and then they open
Right.
fire on them to get them running, and they kill like two of them right away, and this type of thing. And they have an opportunity to save one, and Khalifa's like, "No, it's too late already." And Ahsoka balks at that. It's like, we could have done something. We could have saved her. And but at any rate, I can't remember exactly where I was going with this, but the point is just that one, it brings up the question: where were these younglings, not Padawans, younglings, exposed that these Trandoshans could have captured them? It doesn't say in this episode. I can think of a number of innocent explanations and some other more nefarious ones, but at some level, that seems like that's kind of like derelict on the Jedi to let their not even their Padawans get captured by the Trandoshans for this. And
Mhm.
never to have heard about it before this.
Yeah, yeah, and I almost wonder if the usage of the word youngling is just to do exactly what you were talking about, where they can differentiate Ahsoka having more experience, but Khalifa definitely she's in the Padawan, you know, like, era, I guess you could say. But I also wonder if it's just that they were using that interchangeably, the words interchangeably at this point, that instead of really a clear definition of what a Padawan is versus what a youngling is. So, I guess I'm hoping to excuse it like that because, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was any idea of, "Oh my gosh, like, how did they get a hold of these younglings?" That's kinda chilling, not to
Right.
say the
See, I'm
least.
not willing to excuse them because
Mhm,
none of them talk about a master anywhere in this episode.
mhm.
They are just dwelling on the hopelessness of their situation. And Khalifa even points out that, we lost our identity, we forgot who we are because they've been so concentrating on survival. And Ahsoka is like, we got to take the fight to them.
Mhm.
And we'll get into that in a second. If I'm being generous, and honestly, I don't think this is a stretch. These these younglings could have been on a ship in transit somewhere. And just like Padawan got sniped on Felucia during that fight, how hard would it have been a Trandoshan to dock with a ship that's in transit and round up a few younglings? I mean,
Mhm.
you know,
True.
it, it's not that, Ahsoka wasn't that hard to capture in this episode. Younglings would have been even easier that don't even have her prowess in battle, that don't even have, aren't even don't even have her know-how about being on guard in certain situations. So I could think of plenty of explanations where that
Mhm.
could have happened there.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I will say I liked the way that they characterized each of the main, I guess you could say, the main 3. So, as you pointed out, Khalifa, the human girl, then you had Jinx the Twi'lek, and then Omer. They were very reminiscent of, you could almost hear Mundi
uh
in that Syrian sort of dialect voice kind of thing, and then, of course, the Twi'lek using the French accent that we've come to kind of associate with many of the Twi'leks, not Hera, obviously, and there's a reason for that. But, so I thought that was really cool, the way that they did that.
yeah, I thought they were well designed. I thought they were
Mhm.
good characters in that regard. Um, there's a lot of different directions we can go here. One of the things I want to talk a bit about was the philosophy behind the Trandoshans in this hunt. We've alluded to it a little bit here, but this is as you were saying earlier, it's an important part of their culture, hunting and finding prey and finding challenging prey, but that has its limit. We see Garnak rather, who's the leader of this group, sitting on a throne in their like hunting lodge ship that is made out of a Yeti. So we've seen other various trophies in their ship that are some very dangerous creatures on there. Just think of some of the baddies that we've seen in Star Wars. They're all there. And so we know they're capable of hunting dangerous creatures, but yet they limit themselves to Jedi younglings and Padawan in this regard. And then later, it is this notion that, getting back to the most dangerous game, that the human who can think resourcefully, who can hunt you back, and this, that, and the other, you're taking on that challenge, you're taking it willingly. And they put all this importance on Garnak's son, getting his first Jedi kill. And he even says at one point when he kind of corners Yoda, Ahsoka's like, "You have the honor of being my first Jedi kill, first of like many more, I hope." And that's my best Trandoshan voice. And helps when I'm sick that can do that. But anyway, but again, it's just kind of like, if not that I condone this, if you're gonna go hunt a tiger, would you go hunt a tiger cub? If you're gonna hunt
Exactly.
If you're
Mhm.
gonna hunt an elephant, are you gonna hunt a calf? If you're gonna go get a rhino, I don't know what you call a baby rhino, but you get the picture on this type of a thing. Where's the honor in all of that? Or is it, or should we look beyond that the Jedi, even the younglings and the Padawans, are considered that dangerous that if you can get one of those, that is a serious notch in your belt?
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I was saying earlier, about, like, why would they choose the Padawans and the younglings instead of masters even.
Mhm.
And so and why Jedi at all? Is it just because they possess the Force, and so that's kind of an additional notch in their belt kind of thing that says that they can be that powerful to even overpower a being with the Force? Because in one of the things too, when you were saying about the different types of beings that they've overcome, and that when Ahsoka has that vision, we see the Wookiee heads and that
Mhm.
type of thing too, which is a big part of that. So yeah, why specifically do they have it out for those particular groups? And for the Jedi, maybe it's just because they are so anti-slavers. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, oh, well, we're going to go after them because that's exactly the opposite of who we are. And so if we can defeat them, then that makes us even more powerful, kind of thing. I don't know.
Right. Look, I don't hunt, but I know enough people who do that if you're going deer hunting, you're going after ideally like a buck that has
Oh,
a whole
yeah.
bunch of points on its
Right.
antlers. And
Hmm.
there's a whole art to lying in wait and tracking the animal and doing those type of things. But in this case, the Trandoshans are getting on their little battle pods, which are inspired by G.I. Joe, which is pretty cool. Um, they're flying into the briar and opening fire with cannons half the time. And then one might disembark from that and then track down one of the Jedi on foot to try and get a pot shot off of them and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just I get it. It's a 22-minute episode, and so the storytellers can't work all that much as much nuance as maybe we would prefer if this is like a novel per se. But
Hmm.
it's just kind of like the skill, the nuance, and the honor seem to be lacking from me in this regard.
Hmm.
How interesting would it have been to see them like hunt a clone trooper, like Rex of all
Oh,
people
wow.
in
Yeah.
this case? I mean, what would that have been like?
Well, they probably wouldn't think that that was very honorable because clones are a dime a dozen. You know what I mean? It'd be like clay
Yeah,
shooting.
sure. But I mean, those guys are trained warriors, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
true. Good
you
point.
know, and yeah, they might stand out in their white battle armor in that brush. That's the briar, I think as Dave Filoni called it in the feature on StarWars.com and like that. But I'd put my money on Rex on any of those guys over any of those guys when it came
Mhm.
down to it. I mean, I think that would be like an incredibly illustrious kill if you could get it in that
Yeah,
regard.
that's true. I didn't think of it that way. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, let's talk about this world building for a minute because that
Mhm.
was one of the things that I had put in my notes that even when we start off on Felucia, just the attention that they put to the colors and the background and everything like that. And then of course when they get to Washka, they go through all of the different types of shading and lighting and the silhouettes and in the featurette when Dave Filoni talks about the strive to make this so organic and the difficulties that they faced with that, I just thought that that was a really awesome featurette to show how they had to overcome some of their own obstacles with the nature kinds of things because as Dave put it, there's so much geometry involved with grass and rocks and just trying to make it look natural and organic is was a challenge for them, and they even, developed a new sort of technology or editing to be able to do it, and I just thought that was so cool because it really does stand out, and even the aerial shots that they did and the point of view type of shots that they had, and yeah, I just thought that I really, really appreciated that. That big time stood out to me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where looking back on the series now, and we've seen everything they've been able to accomplish in the Clone Wars, Bad Batch, and now Maul, Shadow Lord, that we kind of take for granted how they can make environments like this. But as you pointed out, they had to write an entire new program to get the biosphere the way they wanted it in this episode. That was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing was like Felucia, which was pretty cool about it, was that I know in the EU days, like the first opportunity we really had to visit Felucia outside of Revenge of the Sith, I want to say was the Force Unleashed. And the residents of that planet were like these big, shambling, botanical type people. But we got to see some of the citizens of Felucia. And there's a little small, like Martian looking people in regards.
Yeah,
So that was
yeah.
an interesting change.
Mhm, and I wonder if it's the same thing as, the Utapauns, where they have the 2 different divisions of, like, the species of the Utapau
Uh-huh.
people, and so maybe that's what
Yeah.
that is. Who knows?
Right, right. Getting back to the Trandoshans for a bit. So, they have the fight, and I think it's, yeah, it's with Dar. So Dar is Garnak's son, and he's desperately trying to get his first Jedi kill. And so he's going after Khalifa, and Ahsoka intervenes, and she ends up flip kicking him over the sides of a ledge and into the briar, and then there's a spiky protrusion, and then it impales him and he dies. And then Garnak loses his mind. Like, how dare the Jedi kill his son? And he's swearing revenge. Look, I'm all for we talked about the bit about the world building, and it's not just the environment, but it's also the cultures and stuff like that. But isn't that the whole point, right? That these Jedi are supposed to be dangerous, and then if you're going, part of the honor in killing one is that they fight back, and you could end up on the other side of all of this.
Mhm.
And now Garnek's like, how dare these Jedi kill my son? What are they
Right,
supposed to
yeah.
do? Just like roll over for him?
Exactly, that's like taking, a caged animal and expecting it to not bite you, when you try to go
Hmm.
after it. It's yeah, definitely kinda silly for sure. No, I agree with that. One thing that stood out to me too is going back to Ahsoka and her leadership/mentorship of these younglings is that when they first come upon the one Trandoshan that is trying to attack them, and Khalifa force chokes him, and Ahsoka stops Khalifa and says that, there we don't kill out of hatred.
Right.
Well, I mean, come on, you're talking about, again, a caged animal, a feral animal that has been defending their life for who knows how long. We don't know exactly how long they've been there. And then here comes Ahsoka dropping this like, "Oh, that's not the Jedi way," kind of thing. Well, hello, she was trying to defend herself and you. Not to say that it justifies it necessarily, but when it comes down to something like that where it's kill or be killed, I mean, come on, Ahsoka. I mean, let's, I don't know. Did
Yeah.
you feel that that was a little bit misaligned with
Not
things, or she was just trying to be too philosophical for their case?
No, no, I think they were working hard to highlight, because Khalifa says that, in this episode, that we lost our way, that they were so out
Mhm.
of hope in this. And, they were always on the run, to the point where the only way they could avoid it was by just staying on the move during the day. At night, they would go back to their refuge and sleep. But then, sunlight, they get up and they move around. I get, I think, what Ahsoka was trying to say, which is, she killed Dar in self defense. As part of the fight, she threw him over the edge. He impaled himself on the spike. If that hadn't happened, I don't think she would have killed him in that
Mhm.
regard. But when Khalifa was at, I can't remember if it was Dar or if it was Lotarn or which one of the Trandoshans it was. They had already beat the guy, and it wasn't like in the heat of battle that she was picking up and strangling him with the force. It was acting out of frustration. It was acting out of anger in that point. And so and I think that's the other part, is like Ahsoka could sense her anger. And if she gave into the anger, then she's going down a path that she can't get out of. It's one
Mhm.
thing to take out a combatant in the heat of battle when it's dispassionate, but it's another thing when everything that Khalifa has gone through, trying to keep herself and the other two younglings alive for all this time. Yeah, we can sympathize with her. We have empathy for her situation, that she's been on the run. She's exhausted. She's tired, and she's been hounded at every step. She's seen countless people die by these Trandoshans, and now she's got one in her clutches. But she didn't have to do that.
Mhm.
So I think that's mainly what Ahsoka's is reacting to. It's that you've got hate in your heart here. This isn't a matter of just dispassionate self defense. This is you taking vengeance in this
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm. No, well said, well said. And I do think that this whole, situation, and of course, as we go forward into the next episode, is another one of Ahsoka's trials, kind of
Right.
putting that out there to see how will she react. And it obviously wasn't a planned one, but it's something that the will of the Force, I guess you could say, fashioned for her.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
One other thing I want to touch on before we wrap it up here, and that is kind of Anakin's anguish here. So, Ahsoka. Anakin and Plo Koon were leading 3 different divisions of the army that the Republic had there in Felucia when Ahsoka got kidnapped. And as you would expect with Anakin, when they discover Ahsoka's missing, he blames himself. He's pulling his hair out. He's chewing his fingernails. No, I'm kidding. But the
Mhm.
point is that he's like trying to leave no stone unturned, trying to figure out where Ahsoka is, and he blames himself. And he's got a lot of self grief because he wasn't there to protect her. But Plo Koon keeps coming back to this: is like, do you trust her? Did you train her? Is she capable?
Mhm.
Well, then how about putting some faith in your teaching in this regard, in that case? So I think that those brief scenes speak to other themes that are going on in Star Wars, but what did you make of all that?
Oh, yeah, and I did think it was rather convenient that after our last, episodes with the Citadel that we had Plo Koon joining them on this mission after he
Yeah.
kinda just covered for Ahsoka's butt in the last one.
Right.
But, no, I did like the way that he put that to Anakin when he asks Anakin Plo Koon asks Anakin, "What is her greatest strength?" And the answer is, "She is fearless." And so they kinda say that that's both a blessing and a curse in so many words, but as you pointed out, Plo Koon ultimately walks away and says, "Well, trust her to use her teachings. She will
Mhm.
get out of this. She will figure this out." And so, of course, I mean, this is Anakin trying to protect those that he loves, right? I mean, that's what he does. He can't let that go. He has to always shoulder that particular responsibility. And so, it's kind of one of those things where you want to say to him, yeah, who else was very fearless and probably didn't need any intervention from you? Yeah, maybe your wife in the future,
Yeah.
potentially. But so there's kind of that little bit of, and again, it's an attachment thing. And we've gone down that attachment road a bazillion times too. But I mean, but it does show how wonderfully caring Anakin is because yeah, he could have just, I don't wanna say written it off, but he could have said, "Oh, yep, she'll be fine, she'll be fine." But it just shows, again, that layering in Anakin's character, and I just of course, I'm an Anakin apologist, so I just think
Right.
that's pretty awesome.
No, you hit on the attachment thing, which is one of the things I was thinking of. I think the other thing is just kind of like the detachment of what the Jedi go through. I suspect if it was Obi-Wan in Anakin's position and Anakin had been when they kidnapped, Obi-Wan would still be looking for him, but would not be at the expense of the mission that he was currently on, which is one
Mhm,
of the things that Plo Koon was suggesting is that you're getting distracted by this, and that's a problem. And and there's a larger picture. You just went through this with Kobe one. I just went through this with both my boys. Graduations, right? I mean, they learn skills. They're supposed to move on. We're supposed to trust in them and their ability. It's let them fly the nest and be the people they're supposed to be in this situation. And that's the point: is that you train a Padawan, but eventually they become the Jedi Knight, and they're not going to be with you all the time. And you,
mhm,
and you have to trust in what you've brought them up to be, and
mhm.
that's a really hard lesson. It's easy to say, but
Yes.
it's hard to learn. It's hard to live. So
It
right.
is indeed. Yeah, and
Mm,
Anakin, he just can't sit idly by. I mean, think about it. I mean, what was the whole reason that he went to Geonosis? To try to save Obi-Wan, right?
mhm.
So, and as he shows up, "Good job. We're here to rescue you. Good job."
Yeah, exactly,
Love that.
exactly. Okay. Well, a couple other little minor things here. We got, appearance of some converies, over the
Yeah,
course of the episode flying
3 of
around.
them, which I think
Yeah,
is very, very poignant.
yeah. And then, it was fun seeing Sochek, which was the Trandoshan that ended up shooting Khalifa, but he was wearing amber tinted goggles and Carter shorts. And the episode guide makes sure to point us out that, he was inspired by John Goodman's character, Walter Sobchat from The Big Lebowski. So if you've
That's
seen that
so
movie,
cool.
you're clearly aware of who that is. If not, go look it up. But yeah, so that brings us to the end of the discussion for this week. So thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and this discussion of the Clone Wars. We'll be back next Monday with another episode, so make sure you join us for that. And to make sure you get it, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do so. We're available on pretty much all the platforms. And if there's some place that you would prefer to listen to us and we're not available there, let me know. And via email or one of our other contacts that Jared will share here in just a second, and I'll do my best to get us on that platform. And we appreciate your ratings, reviews, likes, thumbs ups, comments on whatever podcatchers that you use. I've been saying this for a while now, but life has gotten in the way. I'm hoping to kind of dive into some of that, maybe get some feedback that we can cover on a future episode. So please keep leaving those things. That means a lot to us anytime I come across it. And just knowing that our conversation sparked or inspired a thought or any type of theory that you might have, that's always fun to know. And we'd love to hear those. So thank you for all that. Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody where else they can find us online, please?
Absolutely. And we can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust most easily. And you can also hit up all of our Pinterest boards for some great inspiration for all things Star Wars and so much fun stuff over there. And then once again, if you want more outlets to listen to us, you can go over to YouTube and YouTube Music for the audio versions of both of our I should say both of those have the audio versions of all of our episodes. And we're also on Spotify and Audible and all kinds of fun stuff. So, and Dennis is always so great about getting us exactly where we need to go. So, if we're not there, please let us know and we will definitely get there. And then, if you are in need of some new Podcast Artist merch, you can hit up the link in our show notes. That'll take you to our T Public store. And we've got all kinds of fun things over there with 7 different show logo designs. And last way to connect with us is on our email. So we have our email at podcaststardust@gmail.com. So if you have very long thoughts that you would like to share with us, you can always put those over there. Or even if it's just a hello there kind of thing, we'll always take email. So hit us up over there.
All right. What you got going on in cosplay?
Well, right now, well, you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay, but a little quiet right now. I just had a bunch of different types of appearances and fun things happening during May was a big month for me. So you can catch all of my adventures over there. And I still have some content left over from a couple of the different fun events that I did that I need to get onto my Instagram as well. So check that out at j.snipscosplay.
All right. Coming up on the show on Wednesday, it is the next entry in our Force Awakens series, which will be part 6. And we'll be discussing the portion of the movie that goes from 59 minutes and 45 seconds to 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 4 seconds. That's at least the timestamp on Disney Plus. And then on Friday, we'll be wrapping up the week with a look at some recent Star Wars news. So with that said, thanks for listening to episode 1045 Podcast Stars, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.